Hey guys, Lady Lee here from Lady Lee's Home, and in this video I want to talk to you about starting sweet potato slips and planting sweet potatoes. It is this time of the year here in North Carolina where we put slips in the ground and start growing sweet potatoes. Now sweet potatoes we grow from sprouts, and those sprouts called slips. You can grow slips yourself, or you can order slips from most seed companies. I sometimes I can also find them in farm supply stores in town, but usually when we find them in town, it will be just for the common orange sweet potato variety. These that you see me here messing with are purple sweet potatoes, and those are my favorite. I have a whole lot of resources and information on the blog about growing them. I'll link to all of that below, but it is important that you know that it doesn't matter if they are purple sweet potatoes or orange sweet potatoes, we grow them the same way. From those sprouts called slips. Now, depending on the size of your growing space, you might just want to sprout one potato, or you want to sprout a whole bunch of them. We plant the slips depending on the variety, but about a foot to 18 inches, sometimes even 2 feet apart. One potato will give you a few slips, and each slip will become a sweet potato plant that will produce a few tubers. There are a few ways to do it, but whatever way you choose, just make sure that you always start with organic sweet potatoes. The ones that you find at the store are usually sprayed with chemicals that either prevent them from sprouting or really slow the sprouting process. So you want to always start with organic sweet potatoes. You also want to make sure that you start the growing slips process at least a couple of months before it's time to plant sweet potatoes in the garden. Now, sweet potatoes are a hot weather crop. They're very sensitive to cold weather. They are from the morning glory plant family, and they're very, very sensitive to cold weather. So I'll give you an example here in North Carolina, central North Carolina, which I think we are now growing zone 8A. I start potatoes in a bin, and I'll show you how in a minute, in the beginning to middle of March, and then I plant them outside in the middle to end of May. So I give them a good 2 to 3 months to sprout and grow the slips to the size that you see in the bin here before they are ready to go outside. As I said before, there are a few ways to do it, and I elaborate more about the different options on the blog. Again, I'll link to that. But the way that I do it, and it's been successful for me for many years, so that's pretty much my preferred way of doing it, is taking especially if you need to grow a lot of slips. I take this shallow bin, and I put a little bit of either seed starting or potting soil in the bin, and I basically plant the potatoes in the soil. They don't have to be covered with a whole lot of soil, just barely covered. You'll see at the end that some of them are even sticking a little bit out of the ground, but you just want them to have something that they can root into. And there are no holes in this bin, and I want to water my potatoes, but make sure that it's not like a muddy mess in there. So a little bit of watering every other day or whatever, just to kind of keep the soil moist. And you will notice after a week or two that the potatoes are starting to sprout, and those sprouts will grow pretty quickly. Of course, make sure to put your bin in a warm place. 70, at least at 67, 65, 70 degrees. I hope that your house is warmed to this level in March and April and all of that. We want to make sure that the bean is in a warm place. If you have a greenhouse, it's a great place, of course, to start those. So a warm place, and then once the potatoes start to sprout, they need good light, so grow light or just a sunny area or something like that. When the sprouts are about 8 inches long or so, I cut them at the base of where they connect to the potatoes, so are at their base, and then I place them in a bucket of water. There's like, I don't know, 3 inches of water in there or something like that. Now I showed you before that or here you can see here too, that some of them already are starting to produce roots, and they will grow roots super quickly. Really, it's not necessary to put them in water. You can cut them from the potato and stick them right into the ground, but I do like to let them develop roots for maybe 3 to 4, 5 days, something like that, before I plant them in the garden, because it is already pretty hot outside, and if they have some roots developed, then it will help them with the transplanting shock, and it will be easier for them to find water in the garden. I had times before when the slips just shriveled and dried on me because it was just too hot for them to deal with outside temperature after they've been inside. So I cut them like you see me do here. I cut them at the base. I clean the few lower leaves, and then I place them in a bucket of water for a few days, and I place that bucket of water outside, so they kind of get a period of hardening, which we do that when we start plants indoors. We always have them spend some time outside before we plant them in the garden. So for the sweet potato slips, that's kind of the way to do it. I just take that bucket, I make sure that there's water in there, and I place it outside for 4 or 5 days. They will develop these little white roots very quickly, and from there just look for a overcast day. Maybe if you have a few cooler days, like we're having a week of excuse me, in the 70s now, so that will be a good time to plant them. You can use straw mulch to help them with the transplanting shock, and I basically just stick them about 2 to 3 inches deep in the soil in the garden, again a foot to 2 feet depending on the variety apart, in rows. If you plant in rows, then your rows should be about 3 feet apart. So for my garden, since I plant long rows, and I think we ended up with 140 slips from that bean, I group them in groups of 10, and I stick them in the bucket this way. So when I pull up a group, it's just easier for me to deal with them in the garden. And I also always plant the bigger one and the most beautiful ones first. I always have some left, so it's fun just to give them to friends and family. They're super easy to grow. Sweet potatoes are not too spoiled when it comes to soil. Here in North Carolina, we have clay soil, and they deal with it very well. The only thing that you want to make sure is that it's not too packed. So I try to make sure to make some kind of like a raised row, that it's at least 10 inches or so raised, and the 10 inch of soil is very fluffy and loose, and that will help them create the tubers, beautiful round long tubers. And that's it. Deer love sweet potatoes, so make sure that your area where you plant sweet potatoes, it's better if it's fenced. These guys will be ready for planting in a few days. If you follow me on social media, I'll try to have a video over there of me planting, and again, there's a ton of information on the blog about how to do it. The leaves that I took from the lower part of the slips, don't throw those away. You can treat sweet potato leaves just like you would spinach. They are actually said to help regulate blood pressure or sugar levels, or both in the blood. So they are very healthy. You can saute them, you can add them to salads, you can add them to sandwiches. They're delicious. And as your plant grows in the garden, you can go ahead and harvest leaves once in a while. I know a lot of people don't know that, but purple, or not just purple, but sweet potato plant, the leaves are really delicious, and they can be added to many dishes and treated just like you would treat spinach. So I'm cutting these and putting them in a bag, and they go in the refrigerator, and then I just use them as the week goes. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below, and I will see you again in the next video.